So, hi, good evening, namaskar. I'm Ankit Khandelwal signing in, and on behalf of Rocksport and all our panelists, I welcome you all to this Reinventing School webinar series. This is the last webinar of the fifth week, and today we will be ideating and debating on the topic which is the cornerstones of 21st century schools. I read somewhere that post lockdown or after lockdown, if you are not coming out with a better skill, one new skill with better health and with more knowledge, then you surely do not lack time, but you lack discipline. So my exposure towards adventure and all the rock sporters, it has taught us the art of self discipline. We at Rocksport have adapted this new skill, which is learning through the technology. We have learned how to do meetings, how to learn how to share, and even how to care online. So here we have adapted this technology and we have taken Reinventing Schools, which was used to be a talk series, from physical conferences to virtual meetings. Now, while many of us may find this working from home, or I must say work from laptop, a challenging situation, but the perk of this thing is that you can still sit at your home and sip your favorite homemade beverage. Now, before I take you to the panelists, I would like to tell you about the panelists, and we would also love to know about the from the panelists that what is there in their cup of tea, how they used to spend their high tea time, and what is that they love about their high tea time. So, without any further delay, moving to our first panelist, she's been in a leadership role since the last 11 years in schools in Delhi. During her career, she also stayed in Tanzania, East Africa, and contributed to the International School of Tanzania. I believe I have pronounced it right. As a parent governor, she is now the primary principal of Pathway School, Noida. So we have with us Meenakshi Singhal ma'am from Pathway School, Noida. Ma'am, a very warm welcome to you. Please let us know about your experience in Tanzania and what is there in your cup.
Well, the experience in Tanzania was outstanding, if I can say that, on two counts. Of course, it's a beautiful country, and it has one of the largest wildlife on earth. So there are about 3 million animals just in that small country of Tanzania. The weather is beautiful, and my experience at the International School of Tanganyika on the board of directors there was a different experience altogether. So it was good because it gave me a view of being on the other side of the table when you are a policymaker. And now I'm an administrator here, so that gives me a very good overview of the entire school system, being on both sides of the table. That's what had made it most memorable for me.
And what do you do? What do you usually sip during the evening high tea time?
Well, it's a cup of very strong coffee because it has to take away my, a little bit of lethargy that creeps in towards the end of the day, because you're awake since 5:30 in the morning, rushing to get things done. Then school days, as we all know, are quite full for all of us. So just a little bit of letting down guard and sipping hot, strong coffee, I think pumps up the energy levels a bit.
Great, great, great. So moving to our next panelist, she has a rich teaching experience of about 22 years, most of which has been with schools with international curriculum. She's also part of IB Educators Network that conduct visits at other IB schools in the country to observe their teaching and learning practices, and also guides them further in the program. Please welcome Neeti Bhalla Saini ma'am. She is the principal of PYP and MYP at Genesis Global School, Noida. Ma'am, please tell us more about this IB Educators Network and what is there in your cup.
Good evening, everyone. Well, the IB Educators Network is a cohort of educators from within India and outside India who have been trained by the baccalaureate to kind of guide schools, handhold them, and take them through the process right from the beginning. That is when they become candidate schools to authorization, evaluation. That's one part of it. IB educators are also part of curriculum review. Some of them are. IB educators are also part of consulting for schools and guiding them through the entire processes. They also conduct workshops for school, all IB workshops. And this has been a very humbling experience for me, because on my journey, I've been with the IB as an IB educator for last 10 years now, nine and a half years. And I have learned so much and I've grown so much with each year, with each visit. And every school that I go and visit, my first thought is, wow, what am I going to learn from this school? So when I was invited to this webinar, I thought, wow, they're going to be educators. What new am I going to learn today? And like what you said, Ankit, what new skill? I think this would be one of my new skill to learn from different educators and their rich experiences. I've been a principal in my current school for the last 10 years now, and been in the leadership role for nearly 11 and a half years. Generally in the evening, I sip a cup of tea, like the desi garam chai. That's my favorite, with adrak.
Oh, that's
Okay, nothing beats that.
so I am also a tea lover, and I believe, a tea during lockdown is like picnic indoors.
No, I take my tea to outside the school lawn, and so I live on campus, and I go and sit outside and sip my cup of tea, just to get that picnic feel that I'm having tea outside.
You're lucky enough you're staying in the campus and you have the greenery outside and you can move out. We are in indoors, so we are having our picnic time with the tea indoors only. Great. So moving to our next panelist, she's the principal of Scindia Kanya Vidyalaya Gwalior from past 1 decade, an all-girls residential institution founded by late Rajmata Vijaya Raje Scindia in 1956, and is actively involved in preserving the old artwork. Wow, that's great. Nishi Mishra ma'am, please tell us, what is this old artwork, what is this preserving habit which you have, and what is brewing in your cup?
So hello and good evening everyone. Great to be here with everybody. So Scindia Kanya Vidyalaya was established by Rajmata Vijaya Raje Scindia as a school for girls to shoulder responsibilities in post-independent India. And she felt that there was a requirement for Indian heritage and culture to match those schools at that time which were very popular, which were the convent schools. So this was the Indian answer to a convent school. And we have some very old paintings in the Nandlal School of Art, Nandlal Bose School of Art in our campus, and reviving them was one of the things that we did. But besides that, we have been having a festival called the Dharohar Festival, where we pick up a theme from Indian history or a state of India, and we revive the dying arts of that period or that location. But most important of all, I think our founders' focus on service is something which we have tried to carry forth even today. So we are perhaps the only school in the country that runs a manufacturing unit. We manufacture sanitary napkins, low-cost sanitary napkins for underprivileged women. And then our girls have created a business plan for establishing this unit in the village itself, where we were supporting the women. So now we have 2 running units. The units in both the school as well as in the Jarga village have been providing sanitary napkins to women in the urban slums in near Gwalior. During this lockdown, we donated 11,400 sanitary napkins to the Department of Food and Civil Supplies. And I felt really proud that my girls had already made these napkins before they left. And of course, a lot of it was also from the stock which we got from Jarga. So this is a project which we are very, very emotionally attached to.
And what about your evening time? What about your high tea time? What do you prefer to drink?
What evening? What morning? There's nothing called evening or morning. You just put your nose to the grindstone and carry on regardless. So the only thing that keeps me company is my glass of water. And these days it is warm water.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Nishi ma'am. And moving to our next panelist. So we have Sujata Malevar ma'am. She's from Springdale's Dhola Kuan. With an experience of several years, she's an MSc in child development, She was founder principals of schools in Ambala, and now she's a headmistress at Springdale School, Dholakua. Ma'am is also constantly involved in a lot of teacher training programs. Sujata ma'am, what is brewing in your cup, and tell us about these training programs.
Tell you, sorry, yeah. I have in my cup some green tea, which perks me up for the evening after an exhausting day at work. We've already started going to school, some of us. So, and in this heat is very exhausting. So this is my cup of tea to perk me up for the evening.
Great, great, great. And last but not the least, our next panelist for the evening. She's a leader with tremendous potential, a passionate educator with a bachelor and master's degree in history and education from University of Kolkata. With an experience of more than 2 decades in schools like Shriram, now she's heading the Vega Schools, Gurugram. So we have Vasavdatta Sarkar ma'am from Vega Schools, Gurugram. Vasavdatta ma'am, what do you love to have during your high tea? And do you still miss Kolkata? Ma'am, please unmute.
Thank you, Ankit, and thank you for having me here today. Well, to answer your question, I moved out of Kolkata 2 decades back. So it was way back in 1990 that I moved here. And it's home now, and I think Delhi is as good as any other place. Though I do feel a little sad and very, very sad, in fact, about what hit Calcutta 2 days back. The cyclone, that huge cyclone that hit Calcutta and really devastated everything. I do feel sad about that, but well, that's life that we need to get up and carry on. We've got the COVID, now we have the cyclone, and who knows what's there ahead of us. But we need to move forward, and we need to make sure that we are there for our children around us, and we instill the right skills so that when they face challenges that come their way, they have all the right skills in place so that they are the most competent problem solvers that the world ever saw. And well, while I do all of that, yes, I do enjoy my cup of coffee. It's a very, very hot, but not a very strong cup of coffee. But it, as Meenakshi said, that it does let the lethargy go. It's my way of just relaxing. It's my me time with myself. One in the morning, one in the evening. That's when I like to sit, to introspect, to think of the previous day, to think about the current day, to think about things in general. And when I come back from school, now that I'm home, I do things differently. But when I'm back from school, that's when I sit and I read the papers and I bring myself up to date. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Ankit.
Thank you, Vasudhata ma'am. So that was all about our panelists, and coming now towards the audience. So audience, before we move further, we would also like to know that what is your high tea time and what drink do you prefer? So we have a small poll for it. I was again reading somewhere and it said that शाम की चाय और गुरुओं की राय समय समय पर लेते रहना चाहिए. तो क्यों ना हम अपने ऑडियंस की भी राय लें that what do they prefer in the high tea time. So there's a small poll coming on your screen. I would request all the audience to kindly vote what they prefer. I would request all the panelists also to vote. Meenakshi ma'am, what do you say? What is the preferred high tea time?
Well, for me, it's 5:36 because that's when I reach home. So I don't
Great.
get home before 6 o'clock, and that's when I kind of enjoy that cup of coffee.
Great. Neeti ma'am, you enjoyed your high tea before at home, or you enjoy it at school?
No, I like my tea at home. The home, like I said, the desi chai, which has to be really brewed and boiled. So yeah, around
Great.
5 o'clock, 5:30.
Sujata ma'am, if we give you a choice, what would you like to opt in for? Classic tea, green tea, black coffee, coffee with milk?
Green tea anytime, Ankit.
Great. Nishi ma'am, you already said that you sip water, but if you were given a choice, what would you have preferred? Please unmute.
So I would have had adrak elaichi.
Great. So let us now see the results. Our audience has also voted, and the results are now in front of your screen. So people say 5 to 5:30 p.m. is the preferred high tea time, and we are in sync. At 5 we have started, and 5 to 5:30 we are having a discussion over high tea. And people preferred classic tea, Around 66% of them have said, 17% have voted for coffee with milk, 3% for black coffee, and 15% have voted for green tea. And okay, so people loved having their high tea at home. 95% of the people have said this thing. Great, a great start. Now, without any further delay, I would request our first panelist, Neeti ma'am, Meenakshi ma'am, sorry, Meenakshi ma'am to start and share her views on the topic, which is cornerstones of the 21st century schools. And audience, if you have any questions, there's a Q&A button right on your screen. Please drop in your questions in the Q&A button so that our panelists can answer. Meenakshi ma'am, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Once again, I would like to start by saying thank you to Rocksport for giving me this opportunity to share my views and also exchange views with my esteemed colleagues. It is a strange world that we find ourselves in these days, something that I think none of us had ever imagined. And when this first happened in March, and I'm sure we all had to do this, almost instantly we had to rethink, reimagine, and reinvent the teaching and learning process. Overnight, we adapted ourselves to create a virtual learning program, to find a balance between synchronous and asynchronous classes, innovative ways to present and engage students in lessons, give feedback so that their sense of achievement and motivation levels remained high. It was challenging, but also a huge opportunity for growth. Everybody's learning curve showed a steep rise. There was upskilling in technological know-how and pedagogical practices. The students were initially very happy that they had an extra screen time. And then slowly they realized that boredom was setting in. And then it was up to us as practitioners to make sure that their motivation levels remained high. The students were happy doing things, but they craved to meet their teachers and friends. And after the initial euphoria subsided, it was us teachers who had to constantly innovate and be creative to keep those engagement levels high. To give credit to our students, they too adapted almost instantly and displayed resilience, enjoyed their classes. But we soon realized that we will have to think beyond academic lessons and the loss of academic time. With so much uncertainty everywhere, children were confused and anxious, as were the parents. It became imperative for us as schools to ensure the mental well-being of our students as well as parents. This was done through the practices of mindfulness, music, dance, PE. But all this was done virtually, with children confined to their homes and in the constant company of the few adults at home. Children indulge in play, an activity that is grossly underestimated. While playing with peers, children learn to form relationships, negotiate, cooperate, compromise, problem solve, take decisions, display leadership skills, to name a few. During early childhood, cognitive development happens when children play. Sensory engagements and touch ignite the synapses that lead to cognitive development. As children progress through to higher classes, this happens through pedagogical practices with hands-on resources that lead to the development of the 4 C's that we've all heard about: creativity, collaboration, communication, and critical thinking. Regulation of emotions, developing empathy, compassion, kindness, happens as children develop social skills through interactions, and these are the very skills that get them through life. In essence, all these are the 21st century skills that we want to develop in our students. Play can only happen with peers. It cannot happen in its true sense with parents or other adults who can be boring, impatient, overbearing, and prolonged social isolation is detrimental to mental health for children and adults alike. They could end up feeling isolated, insecure, with an overwhelming sense of loneliness. When schools will reopen, we will all have to adopt the new normal. The new normal, such a scary word, will not allow us to hug students, not allow us to touch them in a playful manner or let them play together lest they get too close. We will all be wearing masks, and I'm not sure how much of rigorous sport can happen. This will again be sending confusing messages to the children and may cause behavioral disturbances. In order to maintain their well-being, social emotional learning will have to take precedence over academic matters. Every teacher will have to be an SEL teacher. We will have to find opportunities for play. We will yet again have to reflect, rethink, and reimagine on the feasibility of what we are doing and how we are designing the teaching and learning process. Along with the 4 C's, the focus will have to be on adaptability and resilience, gratitude, and the ability to feel joyful. Enduring learning happens when the child is emotionally secure, when learning evokes curiosity, when there is a focus on conceptual understanding, when there is transdisciplinary and interdisciplinary learning, rather than in silos and standalone subjects. A learner should be able to develop the ability to utilize that knowledge to solve real-world problems and make connections beyond the books and the classroom. 21st century learning should instill a responsibility towards the community and the environment that would continuously encourage the individual to give of himself and contribute to its growth. As educators, I think that immense responsibility on our shoulders. Thank you.
Thank you, Meenakshi ma'am. Thank you, Meenakshi ma'am. Creativity, collaboration, empathy, problem solving, leadership, yes, all and many more skills which you said should be the cornerstones, and your deep thought about the teaching post lockdown, how it will be. I'm sure that our other panelists would also agree on that. And with this, moving to our next panelist, Neeti ma'am, do you agree with Meenakshi ma'am, and what is that you want to share?
Good evening once again, and thank you so much, Rocksport, for giving us this opportunity to come together and share our views. You know, when Meenakshi was talking about the skills, and I thought, oh my God, she's talking exactly what I wanted to talk about. And yeah, I think the non-visible, I would say. There are visible cornerstones when you talk about curriculum and assessments and teaching, learning, infrastructure. These are all visible cornerstones of 21st century schools. But when you talk about the little non-visible, so essential, which are skills, and what Ms. Meenakshi just rightfully put together, talking about the social communication, thinking, management, all those skills which children need to develop. And during this COVID times, a lot of these skills have somewhere been left behind. We've not been able to kind of include them into the tasks that we do, because these skills cannot be taught in isolation. They have to be woven within the curriculum, how the children are learning. So they have to be part of what the children do in everyday life. You know, so often I have parents when I'm meeting them and they ask me, so you talk about 21st century skills, how do you develop those? And it takes me a little while, and what lessons do you do for those skills? It takes me a while to explain it to them, to say that you can't have isolated lessons. You need to have these skills inbuilt in what children are doing every day. And these skills can be much easier developed with older children and visible, but with the younger ones, the bigger challenge is how do you engage them for longer hours? And in these recent times, and in my few years, each time I've been doing some reading, and when I attend some webinars and seminars, everywhere they talk about the importance of play. And I remember 2 years ago, I was attending a conference by Reggio, and the importance of play, and Meenakshi had pointed that out as well in her little talk, what she was talking about, that play is so essential for the early learning. And what I want to talk about and focus a lot, everybody should focus on, is play. So yes, I've been reading some questions which Nishi ma'am's very beautifully answered, which say that for very young children, there should be minimal screen time. How do you engage them in a school in the scenario what we are today? You need to think of, we need to think of as educators, to engage them through play. And you know, just a little background, you know, giving them time to free play. Close your eyes and think about it. When we were children, those hot summer afternoons, we would play for hours and hours. And what were we doing when we were playing for hours? We would imagine, wonder, enact things. We would create, try out new things, you know, take risks and do things. We would experiment, arrive at conclusions, fail at them, and then try out something new, come up with new theories. We would do that. When we were playing with our cousins, our friends, our siblings, we would be in conversations, discussions, enjoyment. There was delight. And my most favorite is when I see young children play, very young ones, is the skill of negotiation. That's what they learn when they are at play. So And you know, it is, it sometimes is surprising when people say that why do you need time for play? Play needs to happen at home. School's for serious business. And why do you need to go and play in school? Well, play is serious business, and that needs to happen in school. It cannot be happening in isolation at home. It needs to happen all the time, everywhere. Because when they are at play, when they are at free play, the skills that we've already talked about, those are developed. But beyond that, these children are also, the teachers can be assessing them, what they are doing. They can assess the understanding of what they've understood. The young children, you don't have to sit down with pen and paper for them. It's everything happens through play. You know, these days, not just these days, but otherwise also, there's so many times you keep hearing that very young children don't have a very long attention span. They can't sustain their attention for more than 15 to 20 minutes. You leave them for free play, they can be at it for hours. So as a conclusion, the children are engaged in what they like to do, not what we want them to do. So as we go forward in these times, we don't know when the schools are going to reopen. And like Meenakshi was talking about, saying that when they open up, we'll be all in masks, and how do you have the children come back in? They would want to play. So as educators, somewhere our role in the current scenario is to guide our parents to help children build those skills while they are at home. It would be challenging, not impossible. It would be extremely challenging for the parents to do that, especially they have single children. But yes, in case of siblings, they can have a lot more interaction for their children while they're doing it. I feel, coming back to schools, that when in regular times, when children are back, we need to seriously invest more time and give in broader windows for children to have free play. And free play which is chosen by them. It is not, so as a school, as a teacher, my role should be to design that space and leave it for the children to use it and create. Play can never be planned by the teacher. Space and the environment and the stimulus can be planned by the teacher and planted there. How children use it has to be theirs. It gives them that autonomy. It empowers them. It gives them that and motivates them to say that it's my choice and my ownership, and I'm going to do this my way. And it leads to lifelong learning for children. They always are learning through while they are playing. For me, my favorite line says is that play builds character in children. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neeti ma'am. Very rightly said, and how beautifully you conveyed that there are two cornerstones. One is visible and one is the non-visible one. And starting from Meenakshi ma'am, I think she said that skills have to be one of the cornerstones, and you very beautifully said that playing, going in outdoors, playing can improve those skills, and the skill of negotiation can come from playing and all. So we have got few cornerstones moving. Before we move to our next panelist, I would again want to repeat what I said before the webinar, that शाम की चाय और गुरुओं की राय समय समय पर लेते रहना चाहिए. So it's time for another poll. So here audience, are you all ready for the poll? If you all are ready, just type hi in the chat message so that I can know that you all are here. Can we see some more highs coming? Okay, so a lot of them are listening and a lot of them want to have the poll. Here in front of your screen now is our second poll. I would also request all the panelists also to vote on that. So the question is, can adaptive learning be incorporated in high strength schools? Nishi ma'am, what do you have to say on that?
I absolutely agree. Of course, it can be done. That is the whole adaptability. Otherwise, what would adaptability be of any use if it couldn't be for a large number of students and of different learning abilities?
Great, great. Sujata ma'am, what are your views on this?
Absolutely. In fact, I think that is going to be the next step. You know, we will have to change to adaptive learning, and adaptive learning in larger strength school will become the need of the hour soon. We will have to turn to it sooner or later.
Great. Meenakshi ma'am, what do you have to say on adaptive learning?
Well, I think we've already started on it. With what we've done, since March and the virtual learning, overnight we stepped into a virtual learning program. And I think we all adapted, adults and children adapted beautifully to the new normal as it is these days. So
Great.
that is a good example of adaptive learning.
So let's see what our panelists is saying. Is it the same what our audience is saying? So here are the results in front of you. And 93% of our audience agrees that yes, adaptive learning be incorporated in high strength schools. So without any further delay, moving to our next panelist, Nishi ma'am, now we would like to hear from you. What are your views? What should be the cornerstones of the 21st century schools? We already have skills now. What is your take on that?
So for me, the cornerstones of education in the 21st century, or for any century for that matter, are creativity and integrity. You know, this COVID-19 situation has opened our eyes to many situations which we had never encountered before. These have called upon us to display capabilities which we had never ever developed before. Today, in this time of uncertainty, we have no reference points. Nobody has ever been through a time like this before. If they had, we would have seen their successes and modeled our own paths accordingly, and we would have got some direction from them. So the point is that whenever we face something new, we naturally respond to it with creativity. Look at the way teachers have creatively adapted to the online classes in the last 2 months. If they can be lifelong learners, there is no reason why our students will not. They say necessity is the mother of invention and discontent is the father of progress. So to that extent, I think this period is full of opportunities for everyone to show their creativity. So in this 21st century education, all stakeholders need to take a very serious look at the utter lack of creativity in the education that we are imparting to our children. This lack of creativity is also leading to a lack of high quality research in higher education. I have some statistics here. India's 1.3 billion population, among them, there were only 216 researchers per million, whereas in France and US, there were 4,300 each, while China had 1,200 per million population. Now, if you look at India's investment in research, it's just 0.62% of our GDP, whereas France spends 2.25%, US spends 2.74%, and China 2.11%. In a study from 2017, India filed patent applications to the tune of 14,961, while China filed 1.24 million. Look at that disparity. The lack of research is felt most strongly today than ever before, because we are looking for a vaccine, but we are again looking for it outside our country. Every day, new products are being designed. Everything that we see around us, even the Zoom platform, the computers that we are using, the laptops that we are using, everything is the result of somebody's creativity. But how much of it was generated in India? It is sad because there's no dearth of creativity in us as a people. We actually live by jugaad. During this period, we have turned our kitchens into laboratories, balconies into farms, living rooms into tinkering labs. But this innate creativity is somehow systematically being snuffed out at the school level. In the last century, we lost out our creativity because we only wanted to produce workers with a single repetitive focus to excel at the assembly line. That was the outcome that we wanted from our education. Even today, we still teach to the test. We are only learning how to crack an exam and not how to create a better world. The aim of education should be to make a difference, isn't it? We consider higher education and research like a secure job. The findings of research rarely ever lead to the change in design of products or breakthrough in medicine. Research doesn't require high intelligence. It requires innovation. It requires creativity. So is it possible to teach creativity? I think it is absolutely possible to teach creativity in a classroom. When we encourage questioning, we encourage creativity. When we challenge students to start an enterprise in school, when we challenge them to make mock investments and calculate their virtual net worth, we are encouraging creativity. During the lockdown, we launched an online magazine in our school called Quarantine, the Lockdown Magazine. There are competitions in it like No Instruments Challenge, where students are creating music without instruments. So I feel we should aspire to have schools where children come excitedly thinking that today we will get to do something new. We will get to learn something and make something new. And creativity and innovation can be taught like any other discipline. I'll give you a few elements of creativity which can be taught. You can teach children to see patterns, to classify information, to transpose opposing aspects of a problem over each other, to add, to subtract, to change perspective. It's a long list, but it's very doable. And most importantly, teachers have to be given a safe environment because creativity takes courage. And once they start, the students will similarly be inspired to create a new world. Can we give reflection time in timetables? Can we have a class for imagination? We all agree that we are attracted to a new pedagogy, but the system ultimately halts at the examination system. That's what brings us back to the same old chalk, talk, and rote learning. But if we can acquaint our children with the power of creativity and yet train them for taking exams, we would be able to beat the system. But creativity alone is not enough. And unwavering integrity is a non negotiable cornerstone of education in the 21st century. Integrity is the difference between a nuclear bomb and nuclear power. It is the difference between creating new technologies and hacking into them. So let us have the courage to create and the will to walk the straight and narrow. So I would conclude by saying that it's time that we give a changed world to our students before we try to give worthy citizens to the new world. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, ma'am. What great thoughts you have, and the kind of stats you have shared that we have lack of researchers. We should have more investment in research and more patents to be done. And I believe the creativity should be one of the cornerstone along with integrity. And I must commend what a great initiative Quarantine is. So with all these thoughts, moving to Sujata ma'am, do you agree with Nishi ma'am, and what is that you want to add to the cornerstones?
Absolutely, I fully agree with Ma'am Nishi. And I would like to start with a quote. First of all, I want to say thank you to Rocksport for giving us an opportunity. It's a privilege to be on the same platform as such eminent educationists. And I think Rocksports, I need to thank you for that. And you've been rocking sports, now you're rocking education, so great going. I would like to begin with a quote by Sir Ken Robinson, who says, and I agree with him, who says, the more complex the world becomes, the more creative we need to become to meet the challenges. And COVID-19 has fast forwarded the transition period from classrooms to online teaching. It has not given us a chance really to adapt ourselves. But what a beautiful job our teachers have done. With creativity, with collaboration, they have not only challenge, they have overcome the challenge, they have overthrown the challenge. And education must not be the same as we left it in mid-March 2020. It has changed, and we cannot go back to it now in the same way. It needs a new approach. Our teachers, I think, are the unsung heroes of the COVID war. Everybody's talking about the doctors and the police, but nobody is really praising the teachers, and they've just done a wonderful job to keep the education for the children continuous. When we talk about the 21st century children, now let's look at who are they. They are generation alpha. They are born after 2010. Most of them are in the primary classes now. They are younger than the smartphones. They are younger than the iPads. They are younger than the Alexa. They are younger than the Instagram. They are children who have an influx of unparalleled amount of information at their fingertips. They can be sitting in their bedrooms and they could be learning a new language. They can teach themselves on any topic. They can teach themselves on any, they can teach themselves a musical instrument. So in that sense, they are a privileged lot. But then when we look at them, are they really a privileged lot? Is this technology and so much of information not being used as parents as pacifiers, by parents as pacifiers also? Unfortunately so, but that's true. These children are the digital natives, if you can call them that. They are comfortable using, any kind of gadget. They've traveled abroad more than many of us. They communicate across borders. So they are, in that sense, global citizens. So what skills then do they need? They need skills to make sense of this information. They need skills to transfer this information, to apply this information in the correct context, to share this information, and not only be consumers of users of this information, but also generators of this information. So they need skills which are transferable. While I was listening to Neeti Balla ma'am, I was thinking another skill which they do need now is to learn to disconnect. To learn to disconnect from technology, because there is so much of technology and they are spending so much of time on the screen that they've lost their childhood, the times we spent daydreaming, of imagination, of just reading books. So I think disconnect is one skill that we need to teach them also. The skills, we are all talking about the same skills, but the skills need to be transferable. They should be able to transfer the skills to situations, adapt them to newer situations in a rapidly changing world. They need to have decision making. They need to be problem solvers. They need to have the skill of entrepreneurship, because God knows what kind of jobs they are going to have when they grow up. So they definitely need to have entrepreneurship. Along with skills, they also need to have values. There are a lot of videos going around during the lockdown period of animals roaming around freely, the air being cleaner, the river waters being cleaner. And therefore, our children need to be taught to not only be consumers of the resources, but also to share the resources with the flora and the fauna, and to use more judiciously use the resources of our planet. When we talk about this 21st century, we talk about the 3 R's, we talk about the 4 C's. I would like to add a 5th C to the C's, that is collaboration and creativity, communication. I would like to add computational skills. I think our children need to be taught computational skills. They need to know what goes behind the making of this technology. They need to learn coding, programming, algorithms, and this can be taught right from nursery and onwards through activities and games, not necessarily with the use of screen. So I think that is something we need. For the teachers, I would say they need to be more forward-thinking, more flexible, learners, and they have proven themselves. They've proven that they are lifelong learners and they can adapt to any situation. We also need to remember that technology is just one of the skills, okay? And with or without technology, what is most important, all that it takes is the teacher and the taught. A creative teacher and the taught, whether it be a whiteboard, a green board, a blackboard, a screen, or a smart board. What matters at the end of the day is a creative teacher and the child. I would like to end with a quote from Alice in Wonderland, where it says, it's no use going back to yesterday because I was a different person then.
Thank you, Sujata ma'am. Very rightly said and such great thoughts you have. The generation alpha, I believe that you said that they are younger than the technology. And
Absolutely.
computational skills should be one of the cornerstones, or these are the skills which need to be taught to the children. And before I move to our next panelist, I cannot move without praising the fact what Malevar ma'am also said, that teachers are actually playing the role of the warriors. I was seeing on Facebook there's a video viral of a doctor who's saying that you are doing equivalent job as we doctors are doing. So I would also want to extend this to the audience, that all the teachers, a lot of people in the audience we have are teachers. I would like to know from you that if you all think that you are warriors, please write me in the chat. Please write me in the chat so that we can see that how many warriors do we have in the, oh, so we have a lot of them. And before again we move to Vasadatta ma'am, again a small poll, because as I said earlier कि शाम की चाय और गुरुओं की राय समय समय पर लेते रहना चाहिए. So I'll move to my third and the last poll, and the question is right on your screen. I would request all the panelists also to vote, and the question is, do you believe schools need to rethink our evaluation system as learning becomes hybrid? Neeti ma'am, what do you have to say on this?
So I was in fact answering one of the questions, and somebody had asked this question as well about while children learn online, how authentic is it, and how do you assess them and all that. I think it's not important what you are doing with assessment and that you need to assess. What is important is that what have they learned and how are they applying that learning. Marks are then irrelevant. But I go back to what Nishi ma'am was saying, that till the time the education system, the examination system doesn't go away, this will be a sword hanging on the heads of the teachers and the students to keep going back to rote learning and keep doing what they are currently doing. But at least in the early years, in the primary schooling, we can still be more experimental.
Great. Vasavdatta ma'am, what are your views on this? Please unmute.
Good evening. Yes, I agree entirely with what Neeti said right now. I think our assessment systems need to be re-looked at because it still is based on rote learning. It still is based on the traditional systems of memory and recall and time management and all of that. But currently at this stage, I think we've moved far, far, far beyond that. And especially this COVID crisis has told us also that the skills that are now required going forward are very, very different from all the English and the numeracy and the literacy skills that we've so long been trying to get our kids to learn. There are other skills, all 21st century skills that everybody here has spoken about. And being the last panelist, you'll find that I'll probably repeat a lot of stuff that everybody here has spoken about. But I take it a little differently when I say that there are 4 cornerstones.
Sorry to interrupt. Just can we see the results also? The audience have voted and I have the results. So here are the results in front of your screen, that 98% of the people, they believe that school need to rethink our evaluation system as learning becomes hybrid. Over to you, Vasavdatta ma'am.
And I do hope this poll, you send this poll across to CBSE and ICSC and they do something with it, because our assessment systems definitely need looking into. Marks is not the be all and end all of society, and it's a very sad state of affairs that society still depends on marks, and admissions into schools depend and colleges depend on that. So we really need to look into that assessment system now. And having said that, there are skills that our children need to learn, but we really don't know what those skills are. But one thing is for sure, that we need to make sure that they're very, very competent problem solvers in the future. Otherwise, things just can't move forward. We've seen the COVID crisis, and sure, if they were taught things like that, a virus gives you a cough and a cold, we wouldn't have been here at this point doing social distancing, doing isolation, doing quarantine, because some smart mind must have thought that up, that it's not just a vaccine that is required. So the human spirit is really very, very resilient, and we will reinvent schools, we will move forward. And here, everybody is mentioned the playway method. We've spoken about creativity, we've spoken about innovation, we've spoken about all of that. But I feel that any system that pushes you into the deep end, like our teachers were pushed into absolutely the deep end and they were told, go swim, and they managed to swim. Any pedagogy that manages to do that with children will equip them then with all the right skills that is required and necessary for them to handle all future challenges. So I would say that schools going forth, going ahead, have four main cornerstones. And again, I will repeat it that everybody here has mentioned it, but I'd like to put it in form that there are four cornerstones. And 21st century schools, what are 21st century schools? Well, any school that makes a child resilient, and these are important words, resilient and future ready, is a child who will be able to handle everything in the future. EQ is far more important. You asked us about adaptability, and I do feel that more than IQ and EQ, it is the adaptability quotient that is very, very important going forth, because you have the required skills. Yes, IQ, EQ, 21st century skills, all those skills are there with you. But when you are pushed into a system and you're pushed out into the big bad world and you don't know what's going to hit you, well, you need to adapt at that point of time. You need to improvise. And any school that gives a child those skills, makes him resilient, future ready with all those learning tools, is a 21st century school. And the four cornerstones, I would say, would be a pedagogy, what everybody here has spoken about, a pedagogy that is going forth for the 21st century school, helps them think big, gives wings absolutely to their imagination, is the wind beneath their wings, so to say. It allows them to think, it allows them to give a different perspective to everything. That's the kind of a pedagogy that we required, not the cut and dried one that we currently have. So we need to change the pedagogy going forth. Experiential learning is the way forward. That is what we need. The second thing, the second cornerstone, I would say, is 21st century classrooms. I will elaborate on that a little bit. The third, once again mentioned over here, is all the 21st century skills that would be required. And the last one, and which I feel is very, very important, is a very, very dynamic and viable learning environment. Now the pedagogy, everybody has moved forward. We no longer do chalk and talk. We no longer do direct instruction because that is not the way forward. Any pedagogy that helps the child identify a problem in the real world, gets the child to research and think, utilize knowledge that he or she already has, gets more knowledge through research, and then gets to a solution. But that is not all, because our responsibility as educators is also to create a sense of social awareness in children, make them socially responsible. So use all the skills that they've now acquired to put together something, an end product, as I would say, that is of help to society. So they look around and they identify a problem. And it is that problem, it is immersive education that we are looking at, that when they have identified the problem, the solution that they're looking for, how do they get the answer to that? It's direct instruction, it's research, it's a resource person who comes in and talks to them, it's a YouTube video that they're looking at, these are personal projects that they're doing, it's collaborative thinking, it's teamwork that is happening. And that is what makes education very, very dynamic for a learner. And it is when a learner is sitting with all his friends and collaborating and discussing, that is how they go forth. That's the kind of pedagogy that we require. Now, again, this COVID situation again has told us that, well, learning definitely does not have to happen within the four walls of a classroom. And the entire world is your classroom, and thanks to technology, the world is at your doorstep. Now, having said that, again, the next question is, are schools necessary? Well, there is a huge question on that, well, whether schools, yes or no, but I would say a resounding yes, a school is required, because end of the day, we are human beings, we are not robots. And AI might have something to say about that in the future again, but then the human touch, the eye contact, a personal pat on the back, body language, all of that is what a human being thrives on. And more than children, I mean, children, yes, but we adults also like that appreciative look. We also like that, enjoy that pat on the back. And children need to learn these skills. They need to learn how to adjust with each other. Social awareness, all of that is required. When they sit together and they do teamwork and they collaborate, the emotional maturity that is there, EQ that needs to be developed in children. IQ is there. IQ helps you do something, but EQ helps you understand that something over there. And it is EQ that helps them manage their own emotions. It is EQ that helps them understand the point of view and the perspective of the other person. All of this can only happen when you're sitting in a school with the teacher being absolutely a facilitator. And in this school, therefore, what is it that you require? What should the classrooms be like? Well, you definitely need open learning spaces for immersive learning. You need individual quiet zones also where you need to sit. You need breakout rooms for group discussions over there. And you also need small hubs for individual assistance, because we mustn't forget that schools also have to be inclusive. All our learners have a different pace of learning. It's no longer one size fits all. That was the earlier concept. It is now every child learns at their own pace. So we need to have these four individual systems in place. And any good school should have these architectural structures in their blueprint going forward. You know, you have corporates and offices that have made the change to collaborative open spaces. And I think as schools, we need to do the same. At Vega, that is how we do it. We do it through open learning spaces, and we have classrooms with movable walls that can be quickly rearranged to meet any educational requirement. So I do think that this open learning space is very, very important. 21st century skills, everyone here has spoken about that. And it's absolutely an established fact that within the next 10, 15 years, 50% of the jobs that we will now have will be extinct. So the critical need for education right now is to make sure that we create learners who can meet all those employment requirements. The critical need for education is to retool ourselves so that we prepare our learners for jobs that don't even exist now. They need to know what to watch out for. And that is the kind of skill that we need to give to them. And according to predictions of the World Economic Forum, all the 21st century skills that were mentioned here right now on this panel are the ones that will become very, very desirable in the future. And as schools, as educators, it is absolutely our responsibility to ensure that all these learners, these children going forth, have these skills in place. But the one thing that I find is very, very important, the fourth cornerstone, is values and ethics. And in our pace for, academic excellence, in our quest for academic excellence in this fast-paced world, I do think it should be values and ethics that always guide us at all points of time. EQ is very important. It is EQ that makes the world go round, absolutely. And it is EQ that helps everybody retain their sanity. And I believe that the mark of a good 21st century school going forward would be one that that puts very heavy focus in instilling these values. You can have creativity, innovation, all of it, but empathy, excellence, collaborative skills, a way of understanding where the other person is coming from, integrity, these are basics that absolutely need to be in place. It's not an easy task. It's not something that can happen overnight. This is something that we have to start absolutely from day one when the learner walks in through the front doors. It is something that we have to put into the learner, instill in them drop by drop by drop, so that they have it in them, it's absolutely in them, and it's part of their journey as they go forth. That is something very important. And it is these values that I mentioned, all of them have to be there. And I strongly believe that any school that lives these values consistently will be creating fabulous learners going forward. And I do feel that it is absolutely collaboration and teamwork that will help you get closer to your solution faster, because it's teamwork, and teamwork operates much better when the energy amongst the team members is positive, it's competitive, and yet it's absolutely non-threatening. And I do think that this is the wisdom that we need to give to our learners throughout the learning journey in a very, very age-appropriate way. And as at Vega we say, discover the star within. So I would also like to say that not only should we strive to shape young minds and make them 21st century ready, and we should also ensure that we create future citizens who, when they go forth, leave a little sparkle behind, a little mark behind wherever they go. That is how it is. That should be our aim as educators, to create absolutely a holistic child who is able to face whatever challenge comes his or her way. Thank you. Thank you for your
Thank you, Vasavdutta ma'am. I just wanted to know, you said that something about jobs now, that jobs will not be there. What was that statement?
Yes, that the current jobs that you have, about in the next 10, 15 years, 50% of those jobs will be extinct because AI will take care of
I
all of
believe
that.
we do not require 10, 15 years. It has
Okay.
started right now. My job was to sum up the session, and I believe now it is no more required. You already have summed up the entire session. What not? Everything is there. Yes, resilience, EQ, AQ, experiential learning, the learning pace, empathy, and everything is there. So before we say thank you, before we say bye bye, I know the time is more than 6, but I cannot leave without taking few questions from the Q&A round, and I would request all the okay, let's do it in a way. We'll have a rapid fire round. So the rules of the rapid fire round is that I will ask the question to the panelists, and you have 60 seconds to share your views, since we are running short of time. So my first question would be with Neeti Bhalla ma'am. Ma'am, you have already answered it in the Q&A box, but I would like to listen, and our audience would also like to listen it in live. And the question is, increasing screen time and learning in silos are two major drawbacks of digital learning. How can educators tackle these? 60 seconds.
Okay, so I did answer and I said that what we've been able to achieve in our school is that minimized screen time. I know we got some flack for it from our parents saying that you're not spending so much screen time, but we looked at work and we designed work in a way that the children could work around what was the task and not just necessarily screen time. So it is a huge challenge with increased screen time. I've heard some of the panelists talk about the kind of emotional issues that children are going through, and it is, and I think it was Sujata was saying that we need to cut off and shut off and stop the screen and get out of it. So yes, that has been a big challenge. And the other thing was that learning in isolation and learning in silos, that is again the next big challenge that we've tackled at our school. Not 100%, but quite an extent. So a little example is that we were able to conduct an online assembly. So students shared what they wanted to talk about on Earth Day, and the teacher then stitched everything together. So she gave the script and they all talked about it. And it was a complete online 15-minute assembly, which was then presented to the parents. Or the PYP exhibition. So students worked independently and then that was all stitched together. So yes, we've had isolated silos. The learning is still being collaborative for the children. It's not happened in isolation for them. They've had a lot of collaborative opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you, Neeti ma'am. My next question would be for Nishi Mishra ma'am. And ma'am, I also saw you answering the questions in the Q&A box. Related to that and what you shared about creativity and all, I'm throwing this question to you, that emboldening the students for their actual growth of soul, but what we are facing today is aggression in the students. How to deal it with the overloaded curriculum? Do you think the curriculum is overloaded, and if yes, then how to deal with it?
Of course, the curriculum is overloaded, and a lot of it is quite redundant because you can get information at the click of a button. You don't need that information to reside in your brain. You should know where the information is, how to access it, but most importantly, once you have accessed it, what to do with it. It's not important to have information with you just to write it on a piece of paper for an examiner to mark. It is for doing something with that information to create more knowledge, to create better products, to give us a better humanity. Those are the outcomes that we should be aiming at. When we make our curriculum, it has to be something which is basic enough for students to get an idea of where their own aptitude lies, and then go in for it in a deeper way so that you can really make a difference to your own learning, your own understanding, and then contribute to the general body of learning. After all, who taught Newton the laws of gravity? He made it himself, isn't it? So if somebody had said that, no, you have to learn it, and only when you learn over here means to rote learn. Whereas learning for any student of psychology means a more or less permanent change in behavior. Where is that happening in our learning? So I know all of us like to sound cynical, but then that's not really the way out. The way out is to be sympathetic, to be empathetic, and to understand where a child is coming from. And children, believe me, need only a sympathetic hearing. They just want somebody who will sit and listen to them. And I think a lot of aggression can be handled if only we listen. That's my answer.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Meenakshi, ma'am, I know 60 seconds is way too less for you to answer this, but uh, the question here is that online education is good for preschool students, yes or no? And because the teacher thinks that it also requires emotional touch, do you think we need to redefine the EQ also?
Definitely, we need to redefine the EQ because, as I had spoken earlier, I think the EQ is the most important thing. Information is fine and it's available at the click of the button. But to have an emotionally sound person, if we are having a lot of crime these days, if we are having people who are insensitive, it is because of an education system that has gone grossly wrong. Because we focused more on filling their heads with information rather than how to be kind, how to be empathetic, how to be compassionate. And that is why we have a generation who's completely insensitive to the needs of others. But I'm again very happy to see the younger generation, because over the last few years, we as schools have realized, I think, and we have made efforts to ensure that these values are ingrained in them. And the generation that is coming up, I see it in even the very young students in school, 8 years old and 9 years old. We had floods in Kerala 2 years ago. Everybody was thinking about, how do you help the people there? The world, all of India was, giving stuff to the human beings there. And my school students said, what about animals? What happened to the animals who got affected by the floods? What about their food? What about their shelter? And they started a campaign to collect funds and food for the animals affected by the Kerala floods. If that can come from a 9-year-old, I think we are doing a good job. So emotional connect is very, very important. And I think our focus definitely has to be on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Sujata, ma'am, moving to you. My rapid fire question to you, as I read that you spend a lot of time in child development. I want you to say something. Wellness nowadays, everything is online, and there is a lot of things which every child is indoors. He's not able to go outside. He's not able to play. What about the mental wellness? What in 60 seconds would you like to communicate to all our viewers that what should be done for the mental wellness?
Well, I think, a lot of onus is now on the parents. Yes, the teachers are spending about an hour or two with the children on the screen, but a lot of onus is on the parents. And fortunately, the parents were with the children. I think it was a beautiful time to have bonded with the children, just to spend time together, listen to each other, to express themselves with each other. We also found that children, just wanted to connect with each other. So we've just had a round of eating breakfast together. So the teachers told the children that, okay, in tomorrow's class, we're all going to have breakfast. So don't have your breakfast, we'll all have it together. So, that was a way of connecting with the children. Then they celebrated birthdays in online classes. They have, even teachers for that matter, not only children, even teachers have celebrated birthdays through Zoom meetings and all. So it has been a good time for bonding, I think. And yes, what we need to do, really, the need of the hour is to allow children to talk and to express themselves and just listen. And our teachers have been doing that. They have just been listening to children, allowing children to share their views, express, whether written or orally. So I think that has helped to,
Thank you, Sujata ma'am. And now moving to Vasudhata ma'am. Ma'am, again, I know 60 seconds is not sufficient enough, but the question, as you also talked about the evaluation system and all, so do you think we need to change the current classroom format to stimulate more intellectual exploration and collaborative learning for students?
Absolutely, I fully agree with that. Classroom format is, like I said, we don't need to learn within the four walls of the classroom. Learning can happen outside, and currently learning is happening from home. Like I said, the entire world is your classroom, and technology has brought it to your doorstep. But we have to sit over there, and like some of the panelists here mentioned, that we need to know what to do with the skills. We need to know what to do with all the information that is available out there. Because children have very, very poor, when they are young, they have very poor impulse control. Teachers need to be there to guide them through everything. So yes, research-based questions are there. We give them pointers. It is for the children to sit and to go through all of that. But end of the day, while the pedagogy ensures that it has to be student-centric, end of the day, you need to have a teacher there as a facilitator, as a guide. So when you say that, do we need to change the classroom format? Well, definitely we can go out of the classroom, we can take the children out, learning can happen anywhere. They can go on their own, but end of the day, there has to be a facilitator with whom they can sit, they can discuss, they can get more ideas, they can air their ideas, they can be pointed in ways, because these children are going through different levels, and the parts of their brain that deal with critical thinking, with logical reasoning, with collaboration is still work under progress. So therefore, we as educators need to be there to guide them, to ensure that they are in control of themselves, they understand their emotions, they are able to sit and discuss and understand the other point of view also, perspective. That is what they need to understand. It shouldn't be that this is what I've done and this is how it is. Well, this is how I've done and what is your point of view? That is what we need to do. So the classroom format should be such that it allows the child to move forward and think, but then also accept the thoughts of other people. That is how I feel it should be. Like I said, adaptability quotient is what is required. You have the skills, you have the information out there, but how do you manage the information? How do you manage your own emotions? How do you get it across to somebody? That is my take on it.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, panel. And now the audience, if you think your high tea time was really insightful, just write yes in the chat button. We would like to see how many people think it was really insightful. On the chat, just write yes. Wow. So we have got so many people saying yes. Great. So here we come to an end, and before we move, I have finished my tea, and a cup of tea is an excuse to share great thoughts with great minds. And I would like to, take this excuse every day if I would have to learn so much like that. So audience and panelists, before going, here there is a link in the chat box. It's a small feedback. Opinions are very much required. So please leave your feedback. Just take 30 seconds from your schedule and just give us a feedback that how was today's session. It will help us in bringing more new experiences and better and improved experiences for you all. And lastly, thank you very much panelists. Thank you Nishi ma'am, thank you Niti ma'am, Vasavdatta ma'am, Sujata ma'am, Meenakshi ma'am. It was a wonderful time I had, and I believe all the audience also. And thank you very much for joining in and sharing your views with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you audience, thank you very much for joining in. Here we come to an end, and this was the last webinar, last Friday of the 5th week. We will be again coming up in the next week with a topic which is capacity building for educators, the need of the hour, with some more beautiful panelists and with their views. So stay tuned, stay healthy, stay at your home, and be safe. Thank you very much for joining in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.